Hello YouTube, welcome to day 40 of the 365 challenge where I'm posting a long form video every single day, and today we've got something a little different for you. I've got Veggie Wagon on the call and we are going to be talking about draft strategies. Hey, how you doing, Veggie?
Hello, it is nice to be here on the show. Thanks for inviting me.
Veggie is my co-host for Decked Out. There's a link in the description if you guys want to see our Commander gameplay show. But I wanted to bring Veggie on today because I thought this topic was really, really good for two people, especially people who've been finding that they've had different results in recent sets for Magic the Gathering. And Veggie is very much having good results, and I look to Veggie for his thoughts and opinions on a lot of different formats. So I wanted to bring him on. So one of the things I've really noticed, Veggie, tell me if you are finding something similar here, is that
Mhm.
drafting feels like it's changed. What was once good, what is no longer good, drafting, like the ABCs of drafting, feels drastically different to me. And maybe I've just gotten worse at Magic, or Magic has changed. I can't tell.
I think it's definitely that Magic has changed. Because I think if you were to say like throw you back into a set even 3 years ago, then you would be like, oh right, win, 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 win. Like it's that design has changed in a way that has drastically affected limited.
And I want to believe that, I really do. And I feel like once upon a time I was good enough at limited to bob and weave and to pick up different things in different formats and figure them out and draft appropriately. But I'm struggling way more than I used to. And not to toot my own horn too much, but like I used to be able to just go into a set kind of blind and day two,
Hmm.
cash a GP, like that had happened, right? Like I was able to play limited well enough that I didn't need a lot of practice and preparation to just be solid. And now I'm like struggling to trophy on arena, which feels difficult. And I feel like I'm needing to spend a ton more time with a set than I ever did before to get decent results.
Yeah. I mean, I think you in particular get hit pretty hard by the way that things have changed because I think a main way that a lot of good players were winning limited games uh, before this shift does not work anymore.
And I think that's exactly what I'm getting caught up in, and why I wanted to touch base on what you think that shift is. Is it that, bread, bombs removal, that like that whole acronym is not quite right anymore? Do we need to adjust that? I think one of the biggest pitfalls for me is removal. I find like I'm taking it super premium and I'm like, oh, this deck is great. I've got all of the removal. I've got
Hmm.
everything I could want, like my Christmas list of bread. And then I'm just like, oh, cool, 2, 3. Well, let me reassess here. And I keep falling into the same pitfall of something that worked for me for 2 decades. Like, right, I've been playing Magic for 25 years at this point.
Wow, I've only been playing for 3, but
I need,
that's
yeah,
that's
I
pretty
need your
good.
help, Guru Veggie.
No, I mean that's uh I think you're exactly in the right ballpark on what has changed. Um because like removal has kept up with like power creep. Like if you look at the removal in the current sets at common and you compare it to, sets a couple years ago, you're like, "Oh my God, like we can just kill stuff for this rate this cleanly." But I think the big shift that's happened is that decks don't run out of gas anymore. You can't just grind a player out because the cards do so many things, even at a common level, that before you could just go, great, I one for one removal you until you are out of things that I'm worried about, and then I beat you to death with a 2/2 because I am the person that has anything left. But I can't remember the last time that a game ended like that in current sets because nobody gets grinded out.
I miss those days. I would argue, to take it a step further than that, that I don't think removal has kept up with, the limited environment at rate. Because you're right. it's cheaper than ever to remove things more efficiently than ever. But I think the rate in which cards have text on them is way higher than removal. So the removal, though it removes this 5/5 flyer or whatever, the problem is the 5/5 flyer does something when it ETBs. It does something when it dies because everything does 10 things. So I think in order for removal to be kept up at rate, it needs to 2-for-1 because you've already gotten value out of those 2 cards, and 2 creatures probably equal 3 cards worth of value, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I think this pitfall of me drafting 17 removal spells and being like super happy and then just falling on my face is the problem, because I am getting 1 for 1.5 effectively, or 0.5, and I need to readdress that. And I think drafting on curve and drafting I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I just can't.
I don't know. That's like that core thing is the biggest like thing that I could identify. Because I used to play a lot like that too, where it was just like, yeah, if it's very straightforward. Have enough stuff to stop their things until they're out of things. If I'm the person with a thing left, I win the game. But yeah, you have things that are leaving extra like creature tokens on the battlefield. You have like every card is a threat now. Before it was like, oh, I've killed their good stuff. I'm not worried about vanilla 2/3 now. But vanilla 2/3 doesn't exist. It's now a 2/3 for 2 mana that if left alive will still kill you because it's generating some additional value.
Yeah.
And so you have to have removal for everything, which doesn't work.
I'm wondering too, my next point of contention here with drafting is the drafting process itself more on rails, more easy. Now, I'm not trying to take away from the skill of drafting a truly good deck in the format, because I think that is still difficult and takes a lot of skill, but is drafting a functional deck much, much easier than ever before. And my points for this is that there's no more draft chaff, right? You no longer need to identify whether a card is playable because everything is kind of playable within the realm. And oh, this card is the worst performing common. It's by such a small margin in comparison to what it once was. So now you can draft kind of anything and it will function. And Wizards has given you more handrails because as cards are doing more stuff, cool. Draft card says frog, in deck, functions. And I feel like we've been getting a lot more sets like that than ever, which is great for new players. But do you share that feeling at all?
I think so. It's a little. I don't notice it as much because also the decks that I draft are
The wonky ones.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I think is the skill to draft the weird stuff is there, but usually, or a decade ago, it used to be that the weaker players couldn't put together a functioning deck, so you could really take advantage of them. But now my opponent drafted 37 Kifkin, and they barely know how to tap their mana, but I'm still going to get Kifkined out, right? That's kind of my thought process, is that the good players are still making something that's a cut above, but there's no weak players anymore.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at some of the recent sets because for sure you can apply that to Lorwyn, you can apply that to Bloomburrow, you can apply it somewhat to Avatar. Okay, I just take the vendors in the same style, that should work. But those sets are going to have that anyway. Do we have that a similar like issue in some of the ones that were not like creature type based?
So I think the mechanics is what is doing it more so than the creature in other sets, is like mobilize, is we are now designing color pairs to really have a cohesive game plan, and that's usually tied in with creature type or mechanic, more so than ever before. If you look at some of the older ones, there was morph and things like that, but that usually spanned across multiple colors. So the 5-color good stuff was, difficult to build, but more there, and everything was just kind of more spread out and less supported. And I think that's largely because you had so many cards that were chaff, that you couldn't play, that were actively awful.
Yeah, yeah.
I definitely could be wrong.
'Cause
That's just kind of my feeling is that I'm seeing less awful decks.
that's Yeah, actually, for sure. It was a little while ago, but they did like a throwback draft that was like Ravnica Allegiance or
Hmm.
something on Arena, and both me drafting it was like, oh my god. Like I remember drafting the set. I remember like how to play it, but wow, things have changed drastically. And then also just running into a stream of hot garbage opponent like decks and being like, this is just what we did, I guess.
So I'm wondering if you
Uh,
took a player who's never drafted before, who's like moderately new to
mhm.
Magic but knows how to play like Commander, and you're like, here, draft Bloomburrow. How bad is the average deck? I would say it's probably like a 4 or a 5, right? Just because draft Bunny, Bunny go in deck, problem solved.
Mhm.
It's not
Yeah.
great. Maybe they didn't get enough removal or enough fixing or something along those lines, but they have 30 bunnies, can't be that bad. Whereas if you travel back in time a decade or two and you put that same player or, 100 of those same players into whatever the draft format is, I would say that they're going to be like closer to a 2 power level wise. That's my guess.
Yeah, I don't know though. Is that a big difference between like, okay, we're drafting Ravnica Allegiance. I took all the ones with the pretty Gruul symbol on it, or I don't remember which guild was in it. Azorius. And that does that make a functional deck that like power creep aside is different from how well the deck would be built if you pick the bunnies?
I feel like with the added aspect of half those rule cards being unplayable or being like super specific or sideboardable, that kind of tips the scales for me. Or there are some cards that are like green or red or hybrid or colorless even that are designed to go in
Yeah.
an archetype but isn't super identifiable for a new player to know exactly
Mhm.
what the archetype is trying to do. And those archetypes were less supported, I think, in general with all of those bad cards. So again, that's just my guess. Maybe I'm just trying to cope here.
I'm poking at your argument, but I'm actually with you. Because I think this is a pretty known thing. If they have not stated it outright, then it is apparent in Wizards design that they want to make limited more enticing for new players
Yeah.
because like it makes the money. You're opening packs. That's a good way that like that's a good conversion. And if they don't have a good time, then they don't play more. So you can look at all of these past sets and like at, at least half of the archetypes are easy to identify outside of like magic brain stuff, same type animal, same keyword on stuff,
Hmm.
you're like, I put all the rooms together. Yep, that works. I took all of the cars. Yep, that works.
I
Uh,
think for pre-releases, I don't know if you would find this to be true as well, but I see new players having more fun and having a better chance than ever before because they all have pretty functioning decks. I think is the key thing. Where
mhm.
again, gonna sound like I'm tooting my own horn a little bit, but I used to go to like side events. I used to go to like GPs and things like that and do side events in limited, and the people all playing it were like pre-release level players, and I would go
Yeah.
like 25-1 for the weekend and just like bring
Mhm.
home 15 boxes of whatever the set was because I was able to pretty easily clean up in those fields. Now, either I am substantially worse or everyone is substantially better. I don't know. Maybe it's both because I can't run the field
Yeah.
like I used to be able to anymore.
Yeah. Um, you can just kind of slap cards in a deck. They haven't done like a difficult format for a while. Everybody's able to put a deck together and play a game of Magic, and there were a lot of sets prior to a couple of years ago where you couldn't do that. Where it's like you had to have a good understanding of what to value in limited, or what things are just not going to work, how to put together a mana base, stuff like that, and it's a lot easier now.
So I think the problem I'm running into is that the floor on, like you said, put together a deck together and play some Magic, the floor is substantially raised. And then I did not get any better. And so now the good players have me absolutely crushed. And then I have the teeniest margin on the newer, weaker players because I was never that good to begin with. I was just had a good, like you said, knowledge of, you know, bread and like curve and card evaluation, being able to discern which cards were chaff and which ones weren't.
I I won't take the time to disagree with a bunch of what you just said, but yeah, that's a direct result of the design change that uh, we're gonna try to we're not have unplayable cards. It should be easy to put a deck together, and even if that deck does not win games, it doesn't get blown out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um,
Also, like, is limited with the addition of Arena. I feel like
yeah,
maybe Arena was sort of that poker renaissance because before poker really blew up, there were the sharks and then there were very casual players and there wasn't a lot of in between. There weren't books and resources for you to get very good at poker. And I
yeah.
feel like Arena has done the same thing for limited players, where when you go into a sealed or a draft at a local store in paper, everyone has infinitely more experience on average than they did before. I think
Mhm.
that is very largely the reason why the game has gotten harder for limited Magic.
Yeah. Yeah, because there you also just have a lot more resources, like whether it's like you and somebody going to, your stream to see what's good, or
Yeah.
watching your videos.
Watch my
Um,
videos so you learn what not to do.
I it also there's a difference in like the metas on arena, drafting on arena and drafting in paper, because on arena you very quickly find out what is good, whether it's because you faced four of those decks in a row and you're like,
Hmm.
oh, I should be drafting that now, which cannot happen in a paper draft, or it's you get a lot of data. You see the Twitter posts from someone that's like, hey, Boros is the best archetype in this format, and now you know thousands of people are seeing that and then running to arena and forcing Boros, and it's just it's a weird dynamic that also I think changes a lot, because
Yeah, there,
I'll force things knowing that it's a different strategy in arena. Like that's
yeah,
the other thing too that has changed a lot for me is um like for a paper draft, there is no bad archetype. uh there are ones that are stronger, there are ones that are weaker, but the strength is in identifying what is open and being able to build the strongest deck, even if it's the weakest archetype.
yep.
But for arena, it's you're going to have to compete with the best decks drafted from a bunch of different pods, which are likely to be narrower, like, oh, the top three archetypes, and the best versions of those decks across however many players. So you then have to adjust your strategy to figure out, okay, what do I do if I face the top tier deck? Do I have answers to that in my best of one deck? Or, even if I get the best, bad deck here, is it worth it because I'm still going to face good ones? And I think that changes a lot.
Yeah, I think it's really tough to be a good drafter in a bad seat that is then playing against premium decks of other
Mhm.
pods. It's just really tough place to be. One of the things we just briefly touched on was the amount of experience people are getting on arena to see that, to identify what you're drafting, what you should be drafting is way different because you look at an old school player like me. I used to draft probably at least 10 times physical paper per week, 2 times a night most nights of the week. pretty regularly.
The dream. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so I would, take all those cards and sell them and margin trade. And I was, making like a little bit of a living on playing Magic and poker full time. So now it's way different because I'm going to a store or a GP or whatever, and I'm playing against a field of players who still only draft in paper once a week. However,
Yeah.
they're able to get 10 or 15 matches in during the week, which they were never able to do before. So when I was drafting 10 times a week in paper, every single place I went to, every single night, I was playing against players who were getting in a tenth of the reps. And that just isn't true anymore, right? Like every single one of them, they're still getting 1 rep in paper, but they're getting the additional 9 reps on arena. So
That's me.
It's just gotten.
I'm directly that because I was not I was not a particularly good limited player before Arena. I was better than my friends because I cared and I would read stuff and I'd try to play as much as I could, but my limited skill and knowledge just skyrocketed because of Arena because I had suddenly as much of it as I could get, which is a lot. And so yeah, I imagine that is the same story for a lot of people.
And that has sort of like eked out what the edge that I had as a not like world-class player. I was able to get those reps in and have the edge in the weekly, Magic because I was playing the weekly Magic at every store every night of the week. So it's just I no longer have the added experience that Arena is offering to these players.
Yeah, not world-class player, MTGNerdGirl of Magic Invitational Pro Tour GP fame, but that's a different video. So
there's no PT fame, none to speak of. But I did get to compete, so that's always nice. And my PT like limited is awful. I was like, cool, I'll do okay in limited, and then I'll absolutely just like bomb modern. Completely flipped it, bombed limited, did great in modern. I was like, okay, what the hell is happening? But it's because it was a new set. That's why. Overall, Veggie, are you happier with current drafting than a decade ago drafting?
Happier is very wide. I am happier with current drafting. I love drafting altogether, and I love playing with trash.
Me too.
But I think modern sets make for more interesting games of Magic more consistently, and that to me is a bigger win than I can just go undefeated because people don't know what to do, and I would rather the floor be higher and then me have to push more up into the ceiling to be able to win, but even the floor games are good as opposed to just riding it out like at a mid skill level because everybody has such a high like plateau to climb before the games are good.
And that's what I was like capitalizing on for so long. That was exactly where I was, just taking advantage of weaker players who didn't have the reps. That's it. That's it. That's my claim to fame.
Yeah. I'll give you one thing though. Because you mentioned bread before, and the B stands for bombs, and I don't think that the order of bread has changed, but I do think that it is now bread. I think every set has so many. If this card resolves and sticks for a turn, the game is over. And older design had like maybe 2 in the entire set, and now half of the rares and mythics are that.
Yeah, and there's twice or 3 times as many of them in the pod thanks to play boosters.
Yep. Yes.
There's just a lot of them. So if 2 players in every pod would get a bomb, and in most of their games they would never see that bomb. But now every player has a bomb or 3, and so you're just likely to come up with them in the format. I I think I disagree for bread. Now I need to start taking premium curve filling commons and uncommons that like are like active to my game plan above removal.
Hmm.
I find that I'm taking removal too highly. I'm ending up with like, you know, 7+ pieces, premium stuff that's just kind of wheeling around. I feel like I'm getting away with murder, and then I just fall on my face. So
Yeah, you're getting away with a playset of murder, and then it
exactly,
doesn't
which is
it
like
doesn't
things that
work.
I used to like plead to have a copy of in a deck, right? But now it's like
Right.
I have a plethora of anything I want removal wise, and then
Hmm.
I just, oh cool, you know, every time you play a creature it draws you a card, and then I 0 for 1
Yeah,
myself and I'm pretty sad. So I'm not saying
that's fair.
I don't think removal's bad. I just think I personally I think to correct my poor performances is to lean less heavily on removal and focus more on making sure I have a sturdy curve of like
Yeah,
solid uncommons.
that's a good point because I'm thinking about myself now. I'm like, oh yeah, I think the era of pack one, pick one, solid common removal is over.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. For sure, for sure. And like I would for sure take like a removal spell over like a signpost or something like in the olden days. And now we're just not doing that anymore. It's just not good enough. For me, I would say to answer the question of whether I'm enjoying Magic or Limited more now than I was a decade ago, my heart tells me no, because I enjoyed throwing trash at each other for 50 minutes and
Yep.
really slugging it out and grinding out those games. That said, they did a Tarkir remastered on Arena semi recently, right?
Oh, bringing back like the
The original
cons or
Tarkir.
whatever. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
original Tarkir.
And I was like, in my head, this is the fondest memories. This is the good old days. This is
Hmm.
I performed so well and just crushed so many fields and was able to constantly force like a weak archetype because nobody wanted to be in it, and I just absolutely
Hmm.
dominated with it because you'd get like some of the craziest stuff. They brought back the remaster, and I was like, man, this is kind of not fun. Like it's a bit of a slog. And so in my head I have these fond, fuzzy, sparkly memories for it. But then I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, like this is just not exciting. And like I don't want to play half these cards. Most of my decks I'm unhappy with like to play because,
Hmm.
most of the
We're
cards are
spoiled
bad.
now.
Yeah, we're
We're
super
spoiled now. We
spoiled.
didn't know that this existed. I did not. I was not playing limited during the original Tarkir, which was like a beloved format.
Yeah.
And then I got to try it for the first time with that arena event, and I was also like, huh. It must have been a product of its time.
And so for like the last
This.
decade, people asked me what my favorite draft set was. I was saying that. And now they ask me and I'm
Mhm.
like, well, I don't know. I
Mhm.
don't think I can answer the same thing anymore because I think I was just really happy with it for its time. And I do
Yeah.
think that drafting has gotten better, more fun, more exciting.
Yeah, that's what happened to me with Ravnica. I was like, I remember drafting this. I remember really enjoying it. I remember being very good at it, and then went back in and was like, ugh, I just gotta have to put these in my deck, and
It's
now I have to wait 10 turns as I slowly chip in with an unblockable two power creature
yep.
while they continue to draw useless cards, and I also draw useless cards, but nobody can answer this.
It was exciting back in the day, but yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't make the cut for me anymore personally. All right, Veggie, thank you very, very much for joining us for our talk here about the changes to Limited. I really appreciated your opinions. For those of you guys in the chat, let us know what you guys thought of this conversation. Would you guys like to see more of these kinds of things in the future? And feel free to suggest some topics yourself as well if you would like us to cover something. All right, my friends, thank you again for joining us for the 365 challenge. Don't forget to leave us that comment and subscribe to the channel. It really helps. And Veggie, thank you again for joining us.
No problem. I got to see if there's another Arena Direct this weekend.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow for day 41. And then don't forget to check out Veggie on Decked Out as well. We'll have a link down below in the description. Bye, my friends.